Thank you all for joining us for today's SQL Server Series webcast, What's New in SQL Server 2012, presented by Tom Merrick. We also have joining us today is Brian Long from QuickStart. My name is Amy Nelson, and I'm the Marketing Coordinator for Neudesic and the moderator for today's webcast. This webcast is presented by Tom Merrick, Neudesic's General Manager of the Business Intelligence Practice. We are very excited to have him present for us this morning. Today's webcast is part of our SQL Server series. We will be hosting the next webcast, Master Data Services in SQL Server 2012, on May 1st. We will be sending out more information about this webcast along with today's recording. If you are logged on, you should all be able to see the title slide that states Neudesic. There was a brief intro earlier regarding features within Live Meeting. To briefly recap, we encourage you to ask questions throughout the session by typing them in. To ask a question, click on the Q&A verbiage located in the toolbar on the top left side of your screen. Type your question, then click the Ask button. Please note that all questions will be held until the end. We will also be using the seating chart feature within Live Meeting. Changing your feedback color within this tool provides feedback to the presenter. To provide feedback, click on the feedback menu found in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. Select your feedback color. Your seat in the conference center will display your selected color. Lastly, this webcast is being recorded and will be available via the Neudesic website. We will email you when the link is available. If everyone is ready, please make sure your seat color is green, and at this time, I'd like to turn our presentation over to Tom.
Thank you, Amy. And jumping right in here, let me get to my first slide. So good morning, or good afternoon, or evening to those joining from other parts of the world. My name is Tom Merrick, and I'm the General Manager of the Business Intelligence and SQL practice at Neudesic. I've been looking into SQL Server 2012 since long before it was called that, and it was still SQL Server Denali CTP1 back in November of 2010. So I've had quite a bit of time to kind of look into these bits as they've progressed through the development cycle. I'm happy to announce that they are now publicly available and licensable at this point. To give you a little background on myself, I'm a technologist with 15 years of experience with databases. Many of the years has been focused on business intelligence out of that time. For over a decade, that has been focused on Microsoft technologies, and this time I've worked on many decision systems, big and small. I had a shift in my last position.
Please enter your 7-digit PIN now.
I had a shift in my last position before coming to Neudesic.
The host has not yet arrived. You will be placed into music on hold until...
Sorry about that. Give it 1 second and I'll continue on. I had a shift in my last position before coming to Neudesic, managing one of the largest data warehouses at the time at ChoicePoint, where I managed the ETL for nearly 250 terabytes of data in Oracle and Formex databases. That was focused on public records, both individual and business data. More recently, while with Neudesic, I've been focused on understanding the ways to align our customers' needs with the existing and upcoming releases of the MSBI suite. My role is currently focused on architecting solutions for our clients, managing our technical IP for our go-to-market strategies, such as Counterpart for SAP, and then managing development of Neudesic BI accelerators, frameworks, and platform strategy guidance, such as our BI roadmaps and Neudesic self-service approach. Now, I do not do all this alone, and I have a great team that helps me here. At Neudesic, we have a lot of people that are focused on similar pursuits within this, and you'll notice that in the coming webcast in SQL Server 2012 series. I am pleased to announce we have 6 more deep dive webcasts in the series, going all the way through July, so come and join us on all these webcasts. Now jumping right in with the agenda first, what's new in SQL Server 2012? Starting with enterprise information management. That will be focused on data quality services, master data services, and SSIS additions that have been made to the platform. Next, we'll go into the business intelligence area, which is near and dear to my heart. It's really exciting to see customers' responses to Power View. I'm going to actually show you a couple things with Power View today throughout this presentation. Also, we're going to cover BISM, which is also known as Business Intelligence Semantic Models. This is a new feature within SSAS and is really allowing semantic models to expand and flourish. And it's almost a version 2 of what was released in Power View before, or Power Pivot previously. Also, you have report alerts that have been added in, and I'll dive into that a little bit. Big data. Big data is a new topic that's kind of hit the Microsoft world, and there's big focus on Hadoop in the cloud. You also have scale out to massive sizes for federated database in SQL Azure, and parallel data warehouse for your large data needs on-premise. You have high availability and disaster recovery will be the next segment, and touching on pieces such as clustered servers, availability groups, contained databases, which is going to be allowing more parity amongst the SQL Azure and the SQL Server code bases over time, and allow for easy migration to the cloud. And then lastly, we're going to cover SQL Server data tools, where BIDS is now called SSDT, SQL Server Data Tools, and we have been integrated into the Visual Studio 2010 platform. Great new additions like Schema Compare, Data Compare, Distributed Replay, and then also local DBs are a very hot topic in this new data tool set. So, jumping right in. Enterprise information management, and this is, there's many areas of this.
Hey, Tom?
Yes?
Give me 1 second. I'm having issues. People are not being able to connect to the phone. Give me 1 moment. Let me see if I can recorrect it.
Sure thing.
All right, give me 1 moment. Sorry, everyone. Give me 1 moment just so I connect everyone.
Welcome to the Neudesic conference. Please enter your 7-digit PIN now. Please hold for the tone to join your conference.
Everyone, make sure that your phone is muted at this time, and Tom will go ahead and kick it off.
Thank you, Amy. So with enterprise information management, there's 3 major sections I'm going to cover. There's data quality services, which you'll be using for merging data. You'll also catch misspelled fields here, and reference services, which this is something that many people have done in the past with external lookups, but it's never been done so easily at this point. And I'll get into some of the details of that in the next few slides here. Master data service advancements. You could match data before loading. You could use Excel to manage your master data. There's also SharePoint integrations have been introduced in this platform as well. And that Excel piece is really, really interesting to see, and it allows your data stewards really to have interaction with these master data services feeds. Also, you have integration services advancements. There's been a lot in environment changes, in other shared data connections. You also have some data lineage that's based on name and data type instead of lineage IDs. And then a lot of people have been happy to see that there's actually an undo redo button in the integration services development area now. So jumping into data quality itself, there's 3 major sections you're going to handle within data quality. One is cleansing the data. With cleansing the data, giving you an example of this, you'll actually have multiple records within your feeds coming through. Let's say you've got a bunch of them spelled Neudesic, Neudesic. As new records are introduced, maybe there's one that came through with the misspelling, Nuedesic. That would actually be caught in the process using the cleansing engine and essentially using algorithms that are natural language learning algorithms for pattern matching. So it understands what's in a field and starts to cleanse that data. As you set these up field by field basis and build your knowledge base within data quality services, those fixes will automatically happen. You have areas where your data stewards can actually get into some of this data and accept certain matches that they feel are actual matches. Maybe there is actually a company, NUE, that we would not want to keep into our data, or maybe ever from now on we'll want to correct that. That's all built into the tool set, and you also have areas for your data steward to go in and change these areas. Getting to the second step in data quality, you really have your reference providers. And tying these back to use cases, many times in the past, I've used reference data to do name and address cleaning. In this case, in this example that I have, you're essentially using address cleaning. Let's say you have multiple address records and you want the geocodes and you want to make sure you have full data sets there, such as the zip +4 and other pieces like that. You would use your reference data services and data quality services to verify this data. In fact, there's a few different providers of address lookups in your Azure data market. And you can actually go to Azure's data market and search for the data quality services tools or data sets, and they'll return a search for you, so you could look through that list. Last piece in data quality services is merging records. Understanding that new records with some duplicates will be coming through. The real benefits of this is it not only isolates merges that need to happen, but it also understands the matching. You could run a matching project through SSIS and determine new records and understand the survivorship. And what I mean by survivorship is it's isolating which record you would like to keep. Maybe it's the newest record. Maybe it's the most complete record. There's different reasons you'd want to keep them, and you might actually replace a record that's sitting in there today. Some of this is really helping you isolate your golden records that you're going to be looking for in your master data services systems later. Now, calling out a couple of the future webcasts we have, we're actually going to deep dive in multiple sections of things that I'm going to be calling out today. One of them is actually in the data quality services area. Improving data quality with DQS will be presented on May 29th and will be brought to you by Mark Jelinek out of our New York office. Any data warehouse or master data system has an undeniable need to have clean data for reporting purposes. For instance, how do I know when misspelled words are populating my fields? When you think about a data warehouse system down the line from these data sets, that's a big deal. And having additional, let's say, categories coming through when they shouldn't be, it's something that you could potentially cut off before they get to your data warehouses and before they get to your MDS systems. How can I get a cleansed address? And through reference data, you could kind of look into some of those details. And wouldn't it be nice to merge incoming data with existing records? Oftentimes, people are getting public record sources and other data that's outside of their normal processes. And you'll have to use some interesting ways to match up these data sets. And combination of data quality services and master data services will definitely help you along that way. Now, jumping into the next topic is really master data management, and this is a maturing platform that's really kind of coming along. What you'll be doing in these areas is really, focusing on, your master data that could potentially come from At times we've seen from hundreds of different sources where you might have a customer record. That customer record should really be coming down to one entity out. And one entity means you have one customer that's Tom Merrick. For instance, I'm giving you an example here where I've got Tom Merrick, Neudesic GM of BI practice. I have Thomas Merrick, which is Microsoft Virtual TSP. When I signed up with Microsoft, I used my full name. And then I'm also the past co-chair MDM DQ for Master Data Management and Data Quality, the virtual chapter that we're just now starting up. And again, listed as Tom Merrick. Now, there might be some ways that I actually look at these three records on the left-hand side, and I could merge them together. For instance, I could definitely use the last names. I could also root the first names and take them all to the root of what Tom, Thomas, Tommy, or Tomas would all claim to, which I think is Thomas. And you could use that cleansed record to actually, or that cleansed field to essentially match these together and merge them. You've also got the email address and the address fields that might have gone through reference lookups. All of this could kind of be summed up in your Excel output, and you might see that the first name is Tom, last name is Marek, company is Neudesic, and then maybe instead of just taking those other companies and throwing them away, maybe what we do is we actually tie those other companies through the Excel interface. You could actually tie those to an affiliation or user groups that this person is part of. And obviously each person's data is going to be unique based on their customer records and what they look for to gather up around these customers. But essentially that getting to that single version of a customer or a company or a product is going to help you tremendously in your environment. When you think of some of the use cases on this, you've really got things like, think of the classic marketing mail that's going to be sent out to all of your customers. Now, if someone was to send myself and my wife some mail in regards to their products, I would probably only want to see one of those things sent to me in the mail. As a customer experience, I don't want to see duplicates of just junk mail sent to my house. Now, another thought on that is really the cost of sending out all of those. If I'm sending 2 and 3 of these mailers to a person's house, the return on your investment could be huge in this case. You also want to be running your business from more of a customer-centric model instead of an account or policy-centric model as well. This also will help you segment your customers much better. And allow you to really drill into the details of those customers. And Master Data Services offers very easy feeds into your enterprise data warehouses to use for dimensions and things of that like. They could also become OData feeds for usage inside of tabular models that are going to be built in Power Pivot or in your SSAS Tabular instances. And I will go into more detail on those in the Business Intelligence section. Now, calling out another SQL Server series we have coming out is Master Data Services in SQL Server 2012. That'll be on May 1st, and that's presented by Patrick Gaiucci out of our Dallas office. Patrick is actually my co-chairman of the MDM Data Quality chapter at PASS, and he's also a published author around Master Data Services. Data governance is quickly becoming a wave of technology that IT professionals can't ignore. Now, wouldn't it be nice to know what the correct address is for each of your customers currently today? How about knowing each of the correct product SKUs for each of your thousands of SKUs, and what categories those products sit in to be able to build hierarchies around them? Now, jumping ahead, we actually have the last section of the EIM area, which is integration services. Now, in integration services, there's definitely been some additions to this area of Microsoft SQL Server stack. You have the environments and the shared connections managers. Environments are going to be specific runtime values for packages contained in a project you've deployed to the integration services server. These variable values are mapped to the project parameters that are specified within the SSAS DB catalog. Also, with the shared connection manager, you could have a single connection that spans entire projects instead of being embedded in each package as you previously had to do. Also, deployments are much easier, and administration enhancements have been made as well, which you could deploy your projects to the integration server, which enables you to manage the packages, run packages, and configure runtime values for packages by using different environments, which makes it much easier when you're in a standard development, staging, test, and production environments where you need to push all of these items through those various environments. Lineage improvements inside of SSIS. And essentially some of this has been made, and instead of using your lineage ID, it is now based more on your name and data type within the data source that you're pulling through. So that way when you swap out data source feeds, it'll naturally start to change that out for you, and that was a kind of finicky thing in previous editions. Now wait till Project Barcelona comes out and take a look online for any details on Project Barcelona. There's a lot of metadata management that will happen in Project Barcelona, and you can find some things online about that today, and it is a very interesting feature that will be coming out in the cloud over time here.
Hey Tom, let me jump in really quick. We are getting some feedback, so can everyone make sure you are on mute? Thank you.
So one other thing is data quality services transformations. Obviously, with the additions of data quality services, you had a need for new transformations that would call out to those knowledge bases and those pieces in there, and allowing you to do all the merges and everything else through that system. And then lastly, like I said before, you got the undo redo button in SSDT, and I'll reference what SSDT is later on in this session as well. So another data integration improvements within SQL 2012, we'll be deep diving into this topic in July 24th. If you're interested in some of the pieces that I touched upon there, feel free to join Kola Balarin out of the Houston office. One of the keys to scalable enterprise data warehouse development is data integration. And how can I move packages from development to staging to production? Data quality services looks very interesting, but how do I integrate that into my daily data loads? These are all questions that I'm sure a lot of you have, and Kola will be able to cover a lot of those in his sessions. Now jumping into a section that I am just amazed by what Microsoft has released here. The Business Intelligence Semantic Model is kind of the initial key part that really drives a lot of the rest of the development in this area. Think of that, you could start your developments in your BISM models in PowerPivot as you have done in the past. But you could definitely expand those further than you were in the previous editions, which was SQL Server 2008 R2 and the integration with PowerPivot with SharePoint there. This has been expanded much further. There's different key features that I'll call out in a few slides past here. You could also make them enterprise ready using Visual Studio. So you could take these PowerPivots, import them into Visual Studio, and create a tabular instance right from the metadata inside of that PowerPivot. And it's really empowering that move from personal BI to team BI to organizational BI, and really empowering users to use that self-service frameworks that are developed by companies such as ourselves that will allow you to take stuff from a personal BI area, such as someone creating a Power Pivot with new metrics and hierarchies and things along that line and KPIs, and expanding them into Visual Studio in a tabular instance. Now, both of these are in-memory engines unless you're using direct query, which I'll get into soon. Power View, which AKA Crescent. This is something that was released in the CTPs as Crescent. It's been changed to the name of Power View. This is really a game changer. This thing is what we have been waiting for. And when, business users have been wanting to be able to create their own reports, I'll show you a little quick demo as we get to it here that will go over Power View and actually creating new reports in Power View, and you'll get to see how easy that is. Also allow any business user the ability to explore their data. So if you create that business intelligence semantic model that could sit underneath Power View, they could explore their data and really kind of do a lot of different findings with that data as well. Now, another neat addition that's been added in is report alerts. This goes beyond your standard report alerts that you've had in the past, because these are based on data thresholds. And what I mean by this is you could really watch your fields in your reports for key changes. For instance, if there's a percentage that I want to see go over 20%, and I'm anxious to see when we hit that 20% mark, I could say when this report in SSRS changes past 20%, notify me. And it could immediately notify me when action is needed on that item. So that's something that I think is very powerful for your end users to use. Now, drilling into the technical architecture a little bit with your BI semantic models. And what you'll see here is there's actually one column in here, and I'm going to actually highlight the column for you. This current column exists in 2008 R2 as well as it does in 2012 today. And essentially, that's your standard SSAS multidimensional cube. It takes MDX business logic and queries. And at the data access layer, you could either use ROLAP, you could use MOLAP. MOLAP being a cached mode, ROLAP being more of a real-time mode. And as you can see, you could connect with third-party applications, reporting services, and Crescent and Power View, Excel, Power Pivot, and also SharePoint Insights into these models. The new piece here is really the tabular model that sits underneath SSAS and is part of that BI semantic modeling structure. The tabular model uses DAX for its business logic and queries, and it uses VertiPack for its cached mode, and that's that column store index that everybody knows about. You also have your direct query section down here at the right. Now, currently, that will only connect to SQL Server as a source, but you could use some very interesting architectures combining this with the column store index on that side as well to really kind of scale out your Power Pivot tabular or your tabular instances within SSAS as well. And as you can see at the bottom here, you really have a whole bunch of different sources that you can connect to. In fact, we've even got ways to connect into SAP data sources and other various ERP systems that you might want to connect to. Semantic model additions, I'm going to call out a few specific ones that I think are keys. First off, we can now create hierarchies in our data models. And that was, something that was very nice to do. You could actually do that in a data model view, which allows you to see the view in more of a standard data model view that you would have inside of BIDS, as you would have known in the past, looking at such things as your UDM. You also have measures and formatting. Measures are defined in the Power Pivot window. You could also pull that formatting straight through into the front end, which in previous editions you actually had to redo some of your formatting. That's actually driven right on through. And measures are really, you've got a new environment to create actual almost calculated measures in your models. And it's beyond just creating another column in your tabular instance, but it's actually a true calculated measure. You also have column sorting. So you're not limited to the alphabetical sorts or client-side more sort options functions. So for those of you that have dug into the Power Pivot models previously, what you'll notice is that in this new version, you could actually select a second column to do the sort on. So if you have, for instance, the notorious month sort that everybody knew about in the past, you could actually call out a separate column to be able to do the sorting for months, such as the month number where you have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way through up to 12, calling out for January, February, and so on. So that's a very powerful feature, and you can actually, in the back end of your tabular models, as you're defining them, you can actually hide the sort column, so the client side end of that tabular model will never see that extra field. They'll only just have the sort function that's built in. You also have key performance indicators. You could define these KPIs in your data models now. You would actually do that. You could do this right in the front end and back end and different pieces of this tool set. You can also define them right in your SSDT environment as well. You also have drill through to show details. There's no drill through support in the table that makes up the number. So basically what you have is you have the ability to drill through and see that table directly. Now, I know in SSAS you have the ability to call through to reports and things along that lines. This is still a little bit less mature than the SS multidimensional models in that sense, but you could see where the parity is starting to come through. Now, drilling into tabular models a little bit more. I really consider SQL Server 2012 as practically a version 2 of PowerPivot Semantic Models. And part of that version 2, they actually separated out the tabular models into its own instance of SSAS. There's a reason that you actually have this second instance. PowerPivot's SSAS instance is managed through SharePoint. So that's a big differentiator there alone. And it creates the sandboxes and removes them from the instance as the memory permits it and as time permits. If it's not hit over a certain time, it'll throw it away. The other thing with the tabular models, if you were using a pure PowerPivot instance, you would not be able to go past the 2 GB limit on your PowerPivot, because that is the limitation when checking things in through SharePoint. Now, other things that have been added when you pull these tabular models in, as I mentioned before, you can actually open these inside of Visual Studio and import in your PowerPivot semantic model and take all that metadata that's residing inside that PowerPivot model, pull it into the back end and start to scale this more for an enterprise. For instance, you could take your partitions and actually add partitions so updates happen better in this system, and maybe call it out by a time stamp on the data and query it so you've got all your older data and then just the current year in the newest partition. You've also got direct query modes that could call straight to SQL Server. And if you think about this, if you pair this up a little bit with that new column store indexes, using some partition swapping and different things along that line, you could come up with some really interesting new architectures around this, and allow this thing to scale extremely large. Also, you've got additions in the security. And you're not quite to where SSAS multidimensional is, and there's certain times that you're going to this may dictate which version of the tools you use here. But in the security, you have dimension level security is now available by role. Or you could dynamically do it by user. And what I mean by that is you actually tie a user to a specific role, and then you could tie it to a data slice in your data. There's certain blogs and things like that that'll walk you through some of that, but definitely some interesting ways to secure this. And being that Power View sits on top of this, you're going to see more and more requests around this area because your customers are demanding more ad hoc reporting. And as I get into Power View, you'll see that is definitely a good solution for this. On the manageability side as well, you have backups, restores, detach, and attach all through your standard tool set. You also have new features that are in that SSDT to do schema compares, along with more advanced ways of managing this stuff like AMO, XMLA, and integration services tasks can be used as well, along with using the SSAS deployment wizard. So it does kind of start bringing this into more of an enterprise version of these tools instead of just using a PowerPivot gallery per se inside of SharePoint for more of a kind of an enterprise level of the tabular instance. Now, drilling in again in the SSAS tabular area, delivering a semantic model for ad hoc reporting. On June 21st, Steve Muse, our architectural consultant out of the Orange County office, will be coming in to kind of present that. And one of the most exciting new additions to SQL 2012 is that new tabular instance that has been created for surfacing semantic models. Why do I have 15 status fields, in various relational data? And which one should I choose? Could be a problem this could solve, because you're putting semantic layers on top of this to call out what each status means to a business user. How can I have KPIs tied to my gross sales from last year? And yeah, there's actually a whole period over period functionality built into DAX that will allow you to do a lot of these calculations. And can I use Power Pivot created by Jim as my base for this new version of a tabular instance? And you definitely can, and I'm sure Steve will walk you through some of those features. Now, Power View, data exploration. Now, this is, if you haven't seen this yet, this is an amazing new tool that's been released by Microsoft. And it's an interactive data exploration and visual presentation experience. And I will actually walk you through a few of these in the coming minutes here. It's really targeted at users who need to access their business data but don't have technical knowledge to write their own reports. So you're really kind of creating an easy environment for users to explore stuff and actually show their own data knowledge by pushing new reports and new ways of looking at things. It also gives the user a powerful yet simple experience for telling their story with their data. And for instance, I'm going to show you something that actually does that right here. So one of the things that's a really interesting feature of Power View is you can actually extract it right into your PowerPoint. So as you can see, this is actually right in my PowerPoint. It's already been filtered for the data I was looking at the time that I wanted to filter it and push it out to my PowerPoint. But wait a minute, there's actually a button down here that says click to interact. That's really interesting. Let me click that button. So one of the things you'll notice here is if you're still on your network, it will actually allow you to go ahead and drill right into this data source. Now, obviously, you'd have to have the right permissions, but at this point, this data set is actually live. I could click on the items here. I could click on my certain categories of my healthcare demo here. And see different items. And as you see, I'm clicking on these different bubbles. It's automatically changing the other reports above this. I could also highlight 2 of the different items down here and play it over time and watch that trend. This report only took a few minutes to build when you know the data model. And I can actually go ahead and filter this right in here as well by adding a whole nother year to this data. So there's different ways I could slice and interact with this data, and it's an extremely powerful function. I mean, imagine if you were sitting in your executive's office and able to show him a report or her a report across all of your subject area, your division's needs, and never have to leave your PowerPoint presentation to do that. You could have different ones embedded in throughout the presentation. Now, going the next step further, I actually want to show you a little quick demo of creating 2 new pages in Power View. So I'm going to create 2 reports. I'm going to show basic business user interface used to generate these new reports. And I'm also going to show you a way to offload a lot of IT work into the hands of end users, which I think this is a very interesting quick demo I'm going to show you. So I'm going to pull my other screen on here, and hopefully everybody can see that refreshing. First step here is I'm going to actually click the Edit Report tab. So I'm going to jump into that Edit Report. And one of the first steps I'm going to do is I'm going to actually expand the cars data over here. And you can see that this is actually my tabular model over on the right-hand side. I could drill into the different pieces of this tabular model and kind of look through each of the fields I have. Now we've simplified, this data source is extremely simplified for that end user. You don't want to make it too difficult, and you'll also see that I could come up and title this. I could say car sales analysis, and I'm going to click in the background here and just go ahead and I'm just going to double click on this cars really quick. And if you set default fields, you'll notice that not all the fields got added on when I double click that. It selected just the default fields that I wanted. Now, what I could do is I could keep this highlighted, and I could actually come up here into my visualizations up here and click on a card type. So you'll also notice that a lot of the formatting is already done for you in here. You don't have to do a lot of stuff. I can actually move it around, and you can see how that format automatically changes for me. So I'm going to just kind of put it right there, and we'll expand this down to the bottom and maybe over to the side here. Now I can click on this white space in the background again, and I'm going to go ahead and add a new chart in here, and I'm going to go ahead and add in my type of car, and I'm also going to kind of go down into my sales area, and I'm going to add in the cumulative sales. And you'll notice that as I added that, let me remove it one more time, but pay attention up here to the visualizations. I'm going to remove this field and then add that back in. So let me add it back in, cumulative sales. Notice how all those visualizations become ungrayed. Because it's looking at your data model underneath the hood here and understanding that I could actually change out the data to look like a certain way that's going to fit that type of data better. So that's creating that report. I'm going to actually jump ahead and actually create one more chart with sales amount. And also I'm going to do time based on the quarters. And you'll notice that doesn't look too clean at the moment, but let me go ahead and switch this to a line chart, and we'll move this over here. You'll notice that, you know, that chart is, you know, over all of your time, you know, and immediately, let me just go ahead and start playing around with this data a little bit. You'll see how quick that was. I didn't even have to link these things together. They all linked automatically by the data set. So I could actually click on SUV, hybrid, and watch my sales amounts by quarter over that time. And it also filters these cards out at the left-hand side here. Other things you can actually do is build filters right inside of here. So with these filters, you can actually add into the filter area, and through that, I could actually click on the chart here and go to the chart and say, let me look at my quarter. I'm going to select all, but let's get rid of the 2006 data points here, just to focus on everything newer than that. So I could hide that filter, and you can see at this point you've got 2007 and beyond. Now, one of the other things I'm going to actually do is just go ahead and add a new view in here. So let me add this new view, and I'm going to do another kind of look and feel into this data, but now I'm going to do gas price impact on my data here. So what I'm going to do is actually jump back to this first screen. I could highlight a certain chart here, and if I go to the home screen, I could actually copy this element, and you'll see this when you do the first cut and paste. I could say remember my answer and say yes, and come over here, and I could actually use my standard shortcut keys as well. I could do the Control V, Control C, and so on and so forth. So we're going to leave that up at the top here. I'm also going to go back and grab my line chart. So dropping both of those on here, I'm going to expand that out across the whole piece. So got the line chart. I'm going to actually change out my line chart and change it from sales amount. So let's remove that field, and then I'm going to add in my average gas price on that one to show how my average gas price has trended over time. I'm also going to make some adjustments to this top chart. So in the top chart here, I'm going to actually do a couple different changes here. So first off, I'm going to change it to a scatter chart. And this is a new chart that's introduced in this Power View features. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the margin, which goes to the y-axis, the y value, and as you can see, they're down here at the bottom. You've got a lot of drag and drop capabilities in these tools. And then also I'm going to add sales growth year over year as well. So you'll notice that added into the type. I could also drag that into actually, let me pull the quarter through, and I'm going to drag the quarter over to color. So you'll see that you could explode this data points however you'd like, and actually just isolate on certain ones if you'd like to kind of look at them over quarters, you know, and maybe add up multiple quarters here. So another thing you could do is actually drag this in and put the quarter over a play axis as well. And this is a really neat feature. It actually drives that whole chart over that time. And let me actually go in here and filter this to match it up. So we'll go back to the filters area, and I'll filter that chart also by quarter. So one of the things you'll notice is I can actually match this up to my chart at the bottom here. And let me resize these just a touch so you see it a little bit better. Bring that down, bring that across, and then I'm also going to match these up, and you're going to be able to see how Q1 matches up at the top here as it does on the bottom. So I can actually look at my hybrids over the same trend line and see how that's going. And then I could also grab my SUVs and match them up to the same timeline. So you can actually play those out and watch how they change versus the gas price. So this is a very powerful tool. Imagine, you know, you set loose all of your business users to play around with these environments. So hopefully that gives you a little insight onto how to use that tool set, and you know that's driving a lot of the changes that are happening here inside SQL Server 2012. So I'm going to speed up a little bit here based on the timing I have left, but we have a definite deep dive in here with Scott Berkeley on May 15th about Power View ad hoc reporting and report alerts. So please come and join us for that. It's an amazing new tool, and as you can see in those demos, it's something that a lot of your end users could probably benefit from. Now, big data. This is a huge buzzword in the industry, and Hadoop, what is it? It's unstructured massive data repositories. And essentially, what you're doing is you're looking at those with Hive and certain other query methods to drill into that data and start to aggregate it into either a parallel data warehouse or maybe even Azure in the cloud to allow you some look into the analytics on that data. Typically, you'll pair that up. You could also use the ODBC connector right in Excel to connect into Hadoop as well. So both of these are very interesting technologies. We're going to deep dive into Hadoop, exploring the new Hadoop implementation in Azure. That'll be brought to you by Jacob Sanders on July 10th. And Hadoop is a proven way to query unstructured and semi-structured data in extremely large sizes. Now, what I mean by extremely large sizes, we're talking petabytes. This is going well beyond the terabytes that I used to manage. So this is something that will really expand our needs, and also is the first kind of area where you could start joining your unstructured data into your structured data and pulling the two systems together to really leverage it for analytics. Now, high availability disaster recovery. We have easier clustering and better support for multi-site clustering. For instance, if you have a cluster that's going down in the U.S. due to an earthquake or tornado or a power outage, your other version of that could pick up in France and take over. You also have availability groups. And what this is really kind of saying that I have an application that uses 5 different databases. Let's say this one database right here goes out. If that happens, that whole availability group goes out together, which forces you over to the other data center potentially. And that would allow you to kind of automatically pick up, and your performance will stay intact due to that, because that other system should be able to handle the full load. You also have contained databases, which is really kind of making security easier. Before, you used to have sysadmin rights or things like that for developers. Now, instead, you can actually give access to somebody right at the database level in the contained databases. This is also going to allow for easier transition into Azure later. And then also you have always on with a readable secondary. Now think of your application hitting one database, and if you need a roll app instance or some kind of real-time reporting off that database, oftentimes for performance reasons you don't want to hit the same database. Instead, you could call out this readable secondary and use that for your reporting. Now, on to one of my last sections is the SQL Server data tools. There's been a lot of changes in here, and you know, I'm excited to say that it's actually integrated right into VS now. Visual Studio combines BIDS and SSAS into what they were calling aka Juno previously. You also have the capabilities of Schema Compare and Data Compare utilities. As you can see the screenshot here, it's actually doing a Schema Compare between my local database and also the version I was working with on the server. This is a really interesting tool and allows me to have my local database instance where I could edit and play around with my changes, and then I could see my differences and actually publish it to my deployment server. Now, the other huge benefits of this is imagine your deployments from development to staging to production. It becomes much easier with these tools. You also have a data compare utility built into that as well to be able to compare the data sets. And then this is actually showing a quick screenshot of that data compare as well. Then you also have your distributed replay utility. And what this will allow you to do is really kind of hit a target server in just as a client application would. You could use a controller to kind of hit that run trace that you've already done on that server, and then replay that trace across multiple clients to really hammer the server. So it's an interesting way to test out your performance. Now, in general, Neudesic focuses on delivery of high-value business solutions, and we definitely do a good deal of knowledge transfers in our standard projects. Typically, where we leave off, Quick Start comes in, and today we have a guest on that has a special offer for you around additional SQL Server 2012 license training. Yes, 2012 training, I'm saying, because oftentimes training providers are not up to speed on these things, so it's good to see Quick Start is right up there with us. Brian Long is the area manager for Quick Start Intelligence. Their focus is on MS technical training since 1988, and they're a Microsoft Worldwide Learning Partner of the Year 3 times, which is held by no other. Brian, go ahead and take it away.
Great. Thank you, Tom, and I've really enjoyed the presentation. Many of our customers, participated in this webinar, and you addressed a lot of their questions. I know you addressed a lot of my questions, so I highly encourage everybody on this call to tap into your team's expertise. We've had an excellent success recommending our customers to Neudesic over the years. So at this point, you might be wondering, how you could start to sharpen some of your SQL Server skills, and specifically around 2012. This year, we actually participated in developing a SQL Masters training program for Microsoft. So we're really passionate about the platform and have been, since our early days. And as a special promotion, as Tom mentioned, and as what's showing on the screen, we are running a 30-day promotion where for any of the 7 classes listed on our website for SQL Server 2012, we will offer a free laptop with any of those enrollments. So those of you that are interested in learning a little bit more and attending some classes, it's a great way to also get a little prize to go along with the learning that you'll receive. So let me switch over now and take a look just at where you can find these courses. So from our main website, just quickstart.com, you click on SQL Server 2012 and it will take you to this page. And then once there, you can drill into the specific class of interest where you can review some finer details. So let me scroll down. So here's a list of the 7 courses, as I mentioned. And say you were interested in this querying Microsoft SQL Server 2012. So you can first obviously pick your location. It gives a short description of the course itself, what the audience that this particular class is for, what you'll get at course completion, some of the prerequisites. So what you need to know before attending. And then the course outline. So this is where you can really make sure that these, the different lessons and labs is specifically what you're looking for. So to register for one of these classes, simply select your location, click the Register Now button, fill out the information, and make sure you use that promotion, April Madness. So one of the most popular questions that we receive from students is, which of these classes should I take first? And it's definitely been a frustration of mine over the years, trying to navigate through the weeds of courses on other sites to figure out the correct course path. So to help address this issue, we've developed some learning paths. So on our website, actually, I'll take you back to the page where you can find this. So this will be an area where you can really take a look at a path and take this class before this class and this class. You may be at the intermediate level. So I'd encourage you to also review the learning paths on our website to make sure that you're able to find the correct course that you're looking for. And obviously, my training advising team can help you navigate through the weeds as well. So you can find this link directly on the same page that the courses are listed on. And we have a variety of these for all types of SQL and other classes. So at this time, I'd like to pass the webcast back to Tom to wrap things up. So Tom?
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate you bringing that offer to our customers. And once again, as he had mentioned, make sure you call out the April Madness promotion when you go in and go to the Quick Start for your 2012 courses. Just to wrap up a little bit here, and I know we're hitting the end of our time, we do have upcoming SQL Server Series webcasts, and I'm going to call those out again really quickly here. We have our Master Data Services coming up in May 1st. We have Power Review Ad Hoc Reporting on May 15th. You got Improving Data Quality with DQS on May 29th. Delivering a semantic model for your ad hoc reporting in June 21st. Data integration improvements within SQL 2012 on July 24th. And lastly, exploring the new Hadoop implementation in Azure on July 10th. So hopefully you'll come back and join us for a lot more of these sessions as we deep dive into each of them. Now I'm going to open it up for Q&A. So if anybody does have any questions, feel free to type it in your question area at the top of the screen, and I'll be happy to answer for you.
Great. Thank you, Tom, for this great presentation, and thank you, Brian, for joining us as well. I did get one quick question, Tom. Can you put images within a Power View as backgrounds?
So currently, you can if you put them into the data model. You have to put those into the data model, and then you can actually use it as a background. The other option was how I embedded it right into PowerPoint and showed it right in my PowerPoint. So if you do embed it in the data model, then you can actually use those right inside of there. But there's no way to actually add an image right in the front end there.
Great. Yep. And there was one question that popped up there. If you want to go ahead and read that and answer that one. Manage. There you go.
How does the clean merge differentiate from, hold on a second.
If you click on the question, it'll pop up at the bottom.
Two John Smiths that are in fact the different people. Oh, okay. So essentially, you're going to have other fields that come into that clean and merge. So it can't create miracles and understand that John Smith might be two different people. But some of that, when you have some of the settings within DQS and MDS, when you're using those pieces together, what you'll end up doing is you'll actually set it on certain fields that you're going to clean by. And then if something has a certain threshold that you think is, if it's less than a 90% match, it's going to go through the MDS front end and allow a data steward to essentially okay that. And then you could filter data sets through Excel to kind of look at them and create that golden record. So do we need an enterprise version of SQL Server 2012 to run these features? Now, yes, you do need enterprise or the business intelligence version for a lot of the features I showed today. Certain pieces are covered in the standard edition. You could actually look at Microsoft's website and they'll actually showcase those 3 new features or additions, but they have simplified some of the additions for you.
All right, great. Thank you. If anyone has any more questions, please feel free to type them in at this time. In the meantime, I'm going to click through a few polling questions, and we greatly appreciate your feedback. The first question, was this content helpful for your business? Yes or no? Great, thank you. And the next question I have, please rate the presentation content, excellent, good, or poor. Great, and the last question I have, would you like us to schedule a follow-up, yes or no? Great, thank you. We will be forwarding the link to view a recording of this webcast once it becomes available. Again, thank you all so much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you on our next webcast. You are now free to disconnect. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Tom.